Hey there summoners, are you guys ready for the new patch? My name is Nathan Ng and I'll be your host for this video, and it will be covering all the balance changes as well as the new content for patch 11.20. We'll also provide you tier lists curated by our high elo analysts for all 5 roles. If you're not already subbed, make sure you hit that red button down below so you don't miss out on any content just like this. Now let's begin with the video. Before anything balance related, let's talk about the most important content for every single patch, and that is the skins. The holidays are coming up and we're beginning the fun times with Halloween skins. Bewitching Fiora, Morgana Prestige Edition, Nami, Poppy, Syndra, and Yumi are now available. A little bit cute as well as creepy, these skins are a great purchase if you want to get into the spirit of things. With the skins covered, let's go ahead and talk about the game balance next. For system nerfs, we have some jungle changes this patch. The biggest change is that Smite's healing is being nerfed. On paper, this is an overall nerf for the jungle role. There's no denying that junglers overall end up a little bit weaker because of this, but the real implication behind this is the difference that it will make in combat when one jungler has it and one doesn't. You know, those times when you're just fighting over Rift Scuttle, or when you just randomly get invaded and have to smite your camp and book it? Well, that's where this change will be the most noticeable. This is because Riot has gone ahead and made one more change to help junglers overall because this is a loss of power. Krug and Gromp. To specify, that change is the fact that Krug and Gromp's base AD has been lowered from 78 to 74. Although players won't heal as much as before, they at least take less damage from big hitters in the jungle. Moving forward, we have some system buffs to cover. Imperial Mandate was buffed this patch. The initial hit damage was increased, but in addition to that, a bug fix was implemented to properly give kill credit to allies that trigger the mark. Both buffs are good for the item, but of course, more damage is the big takeaway from the change. Mandate has slowly fallen out of the meta with the rise of defensive enchanters. Damage-based or poke-based supports should have gotten a little bit more agency this patch with the buff to their mythic item. Expect the meta to shift with these system changes. If you want help adjusting to them, or if you're just looking to make that final end of the season's climb, make sure you also check out the website ProGuides.com. We have a ton of coaches who'd love to help you improve, and in the last month, they've helped hundreds of students climb from silver to gold. Anyway, let's go ahead and go through the system changes. So next is champion balance and our tier lists. A big portion of this patch's changes are in the top lane. The first one that we'll be covering is a nerf to Singed. Following a huge buff allowing him to apply grievous wounds when his ultimate is active, Singed has been killing it on Summoner's Rift. With the addition of this new feature, Singed gained a lot more power than expected. And this is where Riot has decided to balance him by taking away excessive strength elsewhere. The target was his E, and the damage has been reduced this patch, making him a little bit less bursty than before. No worries though, since he's objectively stronger than he was prior to the buff to his ultimate. While he was nerfed, we'll leave him in the S tier. Running it back, Irelia has been nerfed once again. Consistently breaking a 40% ban rate for several patches means that she's probably still OP, or the fact that nobody even wants to play with her. Overall, she's a lot easier to play than before, and this is reflected by her historically high win rate and low elo. This patch she faces a sizable nerf to her high DPS, with her passive AD ratio being lowered by 10%. It's difficult to say how much of an impact the nerf will have, but our analysts believe that it'll nearly push her out of the OP tier. That being said, she remains powerful and easily retains a spot in the high S tier. Another nerf this patch is for Shen. While he isn't as popular as other prominent picks, the fact still stands that he's on the stronger side. A little bit too impressive in lane, Riot has decided to take away some power away from his passive. With his shield reduced by 10, he's facing a minor late game nerf and a moderately early one. Winning trades by 10 less can really add up, and depending on the matchup, the extra health could really go a long way. Although weaker than before, Shen remains in the S tier moving forward. Next is a buff for Darius, who surprisingly has needed one for quite some time, but honestly, I don't care for this one. I don't want to see him in the game. He's been out of the meta for a decent chunk of time following previous nerfs. His W's cooldown has been reduced by 5 at all ranks, meaning that at rank 1, it's 2 seconds lower than before. This is typically the ability maxed last, so this is a gigantic buff for him. It's definitely going to help a lot, and while his endgame isn't going to be any better than before, levels 1 through 17 are objectively better than before. That's most of the game, and we'll be definitely keeping an eye on Darius, who's definitely at least A tier this patch. In our OP tier, we feature Camille and Fiora. They're player strong picks who cut it close, such as Set, Aatrox, and Tahm Kench. Moving forward, we have Irelia, Riven, Mordekaiser, Tahm Kench, Jax, Malphite, Shen, Mundo, Set, Singed, Quinn, Aatrox, and Poppy in the S tier. Next, let's talk about the jungle, where we have a majority of the other balance changes this patch. We'll start off with Taliyah, who was slightly nerfed this patch. It's pretty straightforward, her Q's subsequent hit jungle monster damage is down by 5%. While her combat power is unaffected, her clear speed will take a slight hit this patch, but we still think that she'll hold onto a spot in the S tier even after this change. Before moving forward, let me ask you the question of the day. And what's your favorite random fact about League of Legends? Mine is that Jin's name is spelled with 4 letters, fitting his obsessive personality quite well. Let me know your answers in the comments down below, and let's go ahead and hop back into the changes. Amumu has upgraded into a dominant flex support pick as well as a jungler after his rework. While it's good that Riot made him better, they definitely overdid it a little bit and nerfed him this patch to address some issues. His Q has not only had his damage reduced, but the mana cost was also increased. This should theoretically make him a more popular jungle pick where mana doesn't have as much of an impact. Since we expect the impact to be far more severe for Amumu as a support, we'll be leaving him in the S tier. As one of the best junglers in the game, it's no surprise that Jarvan was a target this patch. His passive damage was reduced by 2%, which will of course reduce his clear speed and also his ability to win fights at all stages of the game. Our analysts think that he's going to remain an OP pick, but we'll continue monitoring his performance this patch to double check. Make sure you tune into our mid-patch update next week for an update. For buffs, let's start with Elise. Her base health and armor per level were increased a little bit this patch. Since she's a little bit tankier than before, Elise should have an easier time filling her role as a dominant early game force. The extra durability will help her during skirmishes as well as during turret dives. It's more likely that this change will affect her in high elo, but base stat buffs are definitely something players at all ranks can benefit from. Elise is also on our analysts' radar, but she remains in the S tier moving forward. Hecarim was also buffed this patch. Rather than giving him more damage, Riot is giving him some extra durability to work with. His W's cooldown was reduced by 18 at all ranks, and his non-champion healing cap was increased by 30. One secondary effect of this buff is that his clear speed will go up slightly. However, one big takeaway is that Hecarim will have more health to work with, especially in the early game. Udyr was also buffed this patch. While Udyr received some huge nerfs back on patch 11.12, his ultimate has essentially been reverted to its previous power level. With some extra damage, Udyr is bound to do much better this patch, and he's been moved up to the A tier. Our OP tier this patch features Lee Sin and Jarvan, followed up by Elise, Talon, Fiddlesticks, Zac, Kindred, Kayn, Kha'Zix, Nocturne, Xin Zhao, Amumu, Lilia, Echo, Taliyah, Shaco, and Graves in the S tier. Next, let's run through the mid lane. While there aren't really any balance changes to discuss outside of the top and jungle, we can go ahead and still talk about the shifting meta. In the mid lane, our analysts have been focused mainly on Vex's performance. She's doing superb in spite of a hotfix nerf that she received in the middle of the patch. Upon release, almost immediately she broke out with a 50% win rate mark with her straightforward gameplay and high damage output. It's no surprise that it took away a ton of her base damage in the hotfix because she was even seeing play as a support. Vex is equipped with everything that she needs to succeed as a mid laner. First of all, her wave clear is excellent. Aside from that, she's also a great team fighter with her burst damage, crowd control, and even mobility once she has her ultimate. While Vex's win rate has fallen a little bit after the hotfix, it'll continue to climb as more players gain more experience with her, so don't underestimate her. Anyway, we've actually moved her up to the OP tier this patch. As a result of this, the OP picks are Zed, Uxin, and Vex, followed up by Sylas, Talon, Annie, Kiana, Diana, Ahri, Yone, LeBlanc, Kassadin, Anivia, Katarina, Malzahar, Irelia, Heimerdinger, Fizz, and Yasuo in the S tier. There are several powerful mid laners right now, and the matter of fact is that some of them, under the right circumstances, are actually better than the ones that we have listed in the OP tier. Yone, Yasuo, and even Fizz come to mind. Anyway, let's go ahead and look at the bot lane. The bottom lane tier list remains similar to our previous mid-patch update. Miss Fortune and Vayne currently reign as queens of the bottom lane. Miss Fortune, after receiving a huge buff, has seen a drastic increase in her win rate. Her level 6 power spike is stronger than before, and it's also much more rewarding when you find a good spot to use your ultimate during a team fight. Vayne, also like me, have been left untouched for several patches now. This is in conjunction with many other marksmen receiving nerfs. Her mobility makes her excellent in the current meta, as she can easily deal with divers with or without the assistance of a support. One change that we did make this patch, however, is that we moved Lucian up to the S tier. While his win rate isn't particularly impressive, players are now defaulting to picking him as a somewhat safe blind pick. Since enchanters are much more popular, he's able to take advantage of the bottom lane buffs that he received several patches ago. The extra damage really adds up, and he's able to consistently apply pressure to his lane opponents and also take advantage of his high mobility during team fights. He's my personal go-to pick right now for ranked. Our OP bot lane picks are Miss Fortune and Vayne, followed up by Ashe, Ezreal, Draven, Jhin, Samira, Ziggs, and Lucian in the S tier. Finally, we have our supports. For supports, the biggest change was the Amumu nerf that we mentioned earlier. Due to his increased mana cost and also reduced damage to his Q, we moved him down from the OP tier to the S tier. At rank 1, the mana cost was increased by 40, and remember that he can also cast the ability twice now. Casting the ability twice is now a huge commitment, but we're not ready to count him out completely yet since he scales very well into the mid and late game. Blitzcrank has taken a spot in the OP tier. He's got that hand that grabs you and kills you. All while simple, Blitzcrank's Q can easily win a game, and in practice, it doesn't matter if he misses a bunch of them. As long as he lands the game winner, that's all that matters. But also if he misses and grabs like, I guess, a Mumu, then you're kind of done for. He's also an excellent answer to the increased popularity of enchanters. With his pull, he forces fights that either go to death or instead just makes the enemy player burn their flash. From there, it's easy ganks or a guaranteed kill the next time he lands his pull. Finally, while she's underperforming as a support, we still have to mention that Vex is seeing a decent amount of play. It's an off roll, and the biggest issue with Vex support is that her Q's base damage scaling is ridiculously high. In other words, without levels, she misses out on a ton of her damage, and supports are typically left with the least resources. In the OP tier, we have Blitzcrank and Soraka, followed up by Thresh, Morgana, Maokai, Zarya, Yuumi, Nami, Lulu, Sona, Leona, and Amumu in the S tier. And with all that being said, that wraps up our patch 11.20 rundown. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe because we would really love to interact with y'all. I know this season is coming to a close, so there might be a lot of pressure to climb, but if you're not having fun with this game, make sure that you take care of your mental health first. If you take care of your mental health and your physical health, I guarantee that you'll be winning more games. Anyway, with all that being said, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.